What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. You already know, you see the background in the video. It's a Sixers preview episode. The Sixers are fucking back. You can see I'm juiced up for it. I've been waiting to get on the mic to talk basketball, man. NBA is back. Not only the Sixers, the entire NBA is back. Obviously, I've been enjoying the NFL. You've been seeing me on Turf Talk, Eagles pregame live, all types of shit throughout the week for the NFL. Love the NFL, but nothing touches NBA, touches basketball. Nothing like basketball. It is my favorite sport. Literally, my favorite sport. And I'm ready for the NBA season to get kicked off. And why am I so fucking fired up? Because this Sixers team has me juiced. You thought the Eagles had me juiced, ready for a championship because they're playing lights out right now. But I'm telling you, there's another team in this city that is ready for a championship, and they are the Philadelphia 76ers. We're going to dive into the Philadelphia 76ers in this quick episode. Before we get into that, obviously, house cleaning. We are back, but we still got to do the same shit, right? Make sure if you're not already subscribed to YouTube, DSM Media YouTube page, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, turn the notifications on. You got to know every time we go live because we're always going live. We're always bringing the content. We know you need the entertainment. We want to get you involved in the shows. Get in the comments, share your thoughts. If you got shit to talk it. I'm going to talk it back and we'll get at it. But man, I am fired up here tonight, guys. And I didn't even tag myself at Scotty Drown. If you don't follow me on social media yet, follow me at Scotty Drown. If you don't follow DSM Media, at DSM_media on Twitter, at DSM.DoSomethingMajor on Instagram, and at DSM Media on TikTok. Make sure to follow us on TikTok. That is where the content is really booming. Love getting the videos and the short clips out on there. But guys, NBA basketball's here. The Sixers are back. We got stuff to talk about. Sixers are down in training camp in Charleston, South Carolina. Little team trip, little bonding, getting it all together. And of course, we got a little bit of notes from the practices themselves so far. Not a lot, right? They haven't been practicing that much. They just got started. But nonetheless, exciting stuff. First things first, we got to go through the basics. Let's just take a look at the roster, look at the additions, talk about the additions. What do they mean for this team? Where do they fit? What I'm going to do right now, just give you a layout of the roster as we see it today. No cuts, nothing. This is what we have in training camp. This is what we're rolling with right now. So we start out, we look at Joel Embiid. We know what Joel Embiid did last season, guys. Another MVP caliber performance throughout the season, but another disappointing end to the postseason, or you could just say the postseason as a whole, because once again, Embiid ends up injured. Not his fault that he gets smacked in the face by an elbow in the last game of the series against Toronto. But nonetheless, he gets injured, breaks his orbital bone, has a tear in his thumb. And that didn't bode well for him. Definitely didn't bode well for the Sixers. I know he's ready to bounce back. Looking at Joel Embiid last year, 30 points per game, led the league in scoring as a center. Come on, that's unprecedented. 11.7 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game, one of his best seasons as a passer facilitator. Obviously, they were missing Ben Simmons last season. That was a huge hole in the offense and the defense, all in the entire organization. Let's be honest. The guy was sitting out with a max contract. Embiid had to make up for that until they acquired Harden, which brings us to our next player, James Harden. Talk about Joel Embiid. He's my guy. He's my favorite player on the team. He's the best player on the team. We know that. James Harden is going to put the world back on notice this season. Too much shit talking last year, guys. Too much shit talking on James Harden. He heard it, and he's lost 100 pounds. He's lost 100 pounds this offseason. He's in the best shape of his life. And from Harden's words himself, let me get it pulled up here because I don't want to misquote my man. Harden's words himself here. Let's see it. I've always said that if my conditioning can be level with my skill set, my IQ, and the work I put in, it's MVP. I can't say that I disagree with what James Harden said there. It's MVP. And I'm telling you, we may not see James Harden in the top 3 of MVP. There are guys like Joel Embiid. There are guys like Giannis. There's a chance that James Harden could have the stigma of having Joel Embiid on his team as a fellow MVP candidate, that he won't get considered, whatever the case may be. He's going to get back to that level this year. And by that level, I mean top 10 player level. You'll see my top 10 players going into the season. Best believe James Harden's in there, right? And I know everybody's sleeping on him. Harden's washed. He doesn't have the shot anymore. He's lost his step. He's looking thin. He's looking trim. He's looking well conditioned. And he's been running hills all summer, according to what he said, lost 100 pounds. Don't forget that. Harden looks back to that pristine Houston Harden. The Harden when he first got to Brooklyn and was putting up triple-double after triple-double. Talk about 40-point triple-doubles. That is the Harden that I'm expecting this season. Doesn't mean he has to do it night in, night out. He does not need to average 30 points per game. That's not the Harden that we need to see. We just need to know that it's in there. We need to see it from time to time throughout the regular season. And then in the playoffs, it's go time, Harden. Harden last season, 22 points per game, 7.7 rebounds per game, 10.3 assists per game, 33% from three-point. That's where you want to see him improve efficiency. Three-point shot, get that mid-range going again, the floater, driving down the lane, that quick first step. That is what we want to see from Harden this year. And then obviously the 10.3 assists per game, just continue that. We love the facilitating. We need that in this Philadelphia offense, especially when you have Tyrese Maxey, who is a combo guard, more of a scoring guard, more of a shooting guard in reality, while Harden can be that facilitator and still score. Which, let's talk about him. Tyrese Maxey, right? The smile, the sunshine out of Philly. That's what Doc called him last year, because he's always smiling. He always has that positivity, 1% better each day. I loved what he said in the introductory press conferences on Media Day. I get it. He had a huge jump last year, right? He had a huge sophomore season. Jumped up to 17.5 points per game, 3.2 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, 42.7% from three. That is elite three-point shooting, by the way, especially for a guy with his speed, his quickness, and his handle, the way he can get downhill and get to the rack. But nonetheless, had a huge second-year jump, right? Everybody's wondering about the third-year jump. What does that look like? Is he an all-star now, right? I loved what Tyrese Maxey said. You know, he is always trying to get 1% better every day. But this is not about me. It's about we. And he said he got that from Doc, and I love that Doc is preaching that. Also love that Doc is preaching defensive. He's emphasizing defense in this training camp already. It's been like 2 days. Emphasizing defense to the fullest. PJ Tucker, D'Anthony Melton. We'll talk about those guys a little bit later. But Tyrese Maxey, right? We, not me. That is key here. They need to be focused on the grand scheme, right? This isn't about getting number one seeds. And you know, to piggyback back to Embiid, right? Maturity in the introductory. Not a lot of talking, not a lot of shit talking, joking around. Straight business. Same thing with Maxey here. We, not me. This is about the team this year. This is about building camaraderie. This is about getting a full training camp together to play together. Harden and Maxey sharing the backcourt together for a full training camp and for a full season. Building that chemistry. And that's what the focus has to be for this team. It has to be we, not me. It cannot be about personal accolades. It cannot be about Joel Embiid winning MVP. I don't give a fuck about the MVP anymore. Yes, I would love for Harden and Embiid get into those conversations and elevate their play to that level again. But I don't care about the award itself. I don't care about the accolade. I just care about their status of play. I don't care if Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey make the All-Star team. I don't care. I don't care if Tyrese Maxey gets Most Improved Player this year. Can he? Yeah, he can. Can he have a third-year jump where he becomes an All-Star? Yeah, he can. but it's not the goal. The goal is championship basketball, getting out of the second round. And I think the readjustment that comes with bringing in some of the players that we mentioned earlier, but we'll get into those later. I mentioned Tobias Harris, guys. We talk about Tyrese Maxey, the big three, right? James Harden, Joel Embiid. We cannot forget about Tobias Harris. We cannot forget about Tobias Harris. He's becoming underrated. It's crazy. With his contract, he is underrated at this point. Because you have people just talking so much stuff about him, but in reality, when Embiid was injured, Tobias was the best player on the Sixers in the playoffs last year. He guarded the best player on every team. He was consistently getting buckets. He was shooting the ball efficiently from three. So, there was a lot of shit talking for Tobias. I love Tobias because he pushes that shit out the door. He doesn't listen to it. He got frustrated midway through the year last season, and after that, you didn't hear a fucking word from him because he's going to go out there and put in the work. And mind you, I had a chance to meet Tobias this summer. I have to boast that. Got a chance to meet Tobias. Saw him in Manayunk one afternoon after I was catching brunch with my mom and the fiance. And got to talk to him for a little bit, man. And one of the most chillest personalities you could ever imagine for a guy of his status, that amount of money at that level in the NBA. Just totally cool. I see him walking in the parking lot by himself. I say, hey, you're Tobias Harris? Duh, right? Like, he's tall as shit. And he's like, yeah, what's up, man? I'm like, hey, it's Scotty. He had sent me a jersey in the mail a long time ago, signed it, and all this shit. He remembered me from Twitter from that interaction, and got a lot of love for Tobias, but this isn't bias for Tobias. I don't want this to be confused. You guys are underrating Tobias Harris. He's going to be so much better this year, and I cannot wait. And when I say he played well in the playoffs last year, I'm expecting that to continue into this season because he started to figure out his role with James Harden in this offense. I'm excited for Tobias Harris this season because it's another offseason. Once again, just like Tyrese Maxey, just like Embiid gets to work out with Harden this offseason, Tobias Harris gets to do that. Tobias Harris gets to find his niches on the court and figure out what he's going to do this season beside James Harden. But nonetheless, I think he's become way too underrated. 17.2 points per game last year, 6.8 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game, 36.7% from the three-point line. Keep shooting at that clip. Get about 3 to 4 of those up a game, Tobias, and we are going to be golden. 16, 17 points, that's all we need. We don't need anything more than that on a night-to-night basis. Yes, we'll take the 25 burger, right? The 30 burger here and there from Tobias. Yeah, we'll take that. But we don't need it. Just like we don't need 30 from James Harden. We just need it here and there. We need you guys to pick your spots when we need buckets, right? And we got to strap up. Let's be honest here. So the rest of these guys, that's the big four. We talked about the big four. I wanted to deep dive on those guys. We're going to talk briefly about the rest of this roster, and then we'll get into some of the additions. Just want to touch on the guys from last year. So we have Matisse Thybulle coming back. A lot of praise coming for Matisse Thybulle from Doc Rivers around the league. He's been working out with guys like Dame Lillard. That's the right type of people that he needs to be working with, because you talk about offensive inclination. Matisse Thybulle had since he has gotten to the Sixers, it's almost gotten worse, but he has zero inclination for offensive, like anything offensively. He is a defensive mastermind. He's one of the best defensive players I've ever seen in my life as far as a basketball defensive player. Offensively, disgusting. Like, you talk about Ben Simmons offensively, at least that dude can pass and dribble. Matisse Thybulle, he looks non-existent. He looks lost at times on offense last season and throughout the first 3 seasons with Matisse. Apparently, he has improved heavily. I saw him doing some ball handling workouts over the off season. He needs that. He needs to be comfortable with the ball. You get the ball in your hands so much, Matisse, because you're getting steals all the time. You're getting blocks and snatching the ball away from people. You need to be able to dribble. Put the 1 dribble, 2 dribbles, nothing crazy. Just be able to dribble confidently. You're in the NBA, bro. And I'm not going at guys today because they haven't even played yet. I'm not going to criticize them for last year. Just be better. And I am expecting him to take a jump here. It's a contract year for Matisse. This is an extremely important season for him. And an offseason where he was in every single trade rumor for the Sixers that they were involved in. Every single trade rumor. He's way too talented defensively for us to just be able to throw him out in the trade for like a Jay Crowder, a guy that's over 30 years old. He's way too young, defensively talented for us to be able to do that. So make yourself not only defensively one of the best defensive players in the league, just be able to play on offense, be noticeable on offense, get a dunk here or there, drive, cut to the lane, be able to dribble the basketball. Simple things. That's all we're asking for from Matisse offensively because he is a stud defensively. Looking for a big jump from Matisse this year, and a lot of praise once again coming from around the league. George Niang. This one's an interesting one because bang bang George Niang from the famous Kate Scott, the minivan. It was fun last year, and George Niang got a lot of play, a lot of run throughout the season last year. I won't lie, I'm a little concerned for him as far as like where he's going to fit in here and get minutes. We've talked about PJ Tucker a little bit. They're bringing in Montrezl Harrell, Daniel House. You just got a plethora of guys. Tobias Harris is a 3 or a 4, right? Where does George Niang fit in? Because he is a defensive liability. He is a little slow, little on the less athletic side, but the guy can shoot. The guy could shoot the lights out. Shot 40.3% from 3-point last year and probably played the most minutes in his career. But ultimately, what I see for George Niang, he's going to be a situational, rotational player. And he's going to be fighting for minutes, man. I hope he can come out, just really shooting the ball well because that will obviously get him more opportunities. And, if he can shoot the ball well, he deserves to be out there. The thing that happened with George Niang last season, last postseason specifically, he got ran down. He played way too many minutes in the regular season. And by the time we got to the postseason, he was burnt out. He was injured. Couldn't shoot the ball anymore. So I'm interested to see what we get from George Niang this year. Paul Reed. Feel kind of bad for Paul Reed. But at the same time, you got to take the steps necessary so that Daryl Morey doesn't feel he has to go out and get Montrezl Harrell. As much as we like Paul Reed, we love him out the mud, right? He's a gritty, grinded out type of player. Love that about him. And I love his potential. I really do. He's got to get this part of it down. He needs to slow down whenever he's out there in the court, and at least when he's playing in the NBA. He's a baller in the G League, right? G League MVP. But he needs to slow down whenever he gets out there on the court. And, with reps that comes, right? You settle into the game. You get used to the pace. And I think he just needs more reps, more minutes throughout the regular season. We saw a little bit going into the postseason and throughout the postseason last year. He showed flashes, quite honestly. He's a good defender. He hustles. He grabs all the boards. He blocks shots. He does everything that you need when you ask about somebody that can come in and relieve Embiid, right, and play with Harden, catch oops, and be athletic. He's just got to put it together mentally. That's what I'm looking for from Paul Reed. He's going to be fighting for minutes at that backup center position, a little bit of floor here and there, I'm sure. But nonetheless, I'm interested to see what Paul Reed looks like this year. Shake Milton, another guy fighting for minutes. I was high on Shake in the past, and you bring in guys like DeAnthony Melton, it kind of puts Shake in the rearview mirror. I'm interested to see with the influx of talent, the competition in the guard room. Talking about a Maxey, Harden, and DeAnthony Melton, those are your top 3 guards. Who's going to be that other guy to step up? It has to be Shake, right? Shake, Isaiah Joe. We'll get into Isaiah Joe, of course. But Shake, I'm interested to see what he can do with his backup against the wall because, quite honestly, he's in a situation where you won't get any minutes unless you earn them. So you got to go out there and ball out, Shake. And I'm hoping the best for Shake. Furkan Korkmaz. Shout out to Furk for standing up for himself, standing up for his country over in the FIBA B-ball over the summer. Definitely was sad to hear about the Georgian players that went and attacked him in the locker room, tried to jump him, all of it, just that mess that happened. Never like to see that in sports, and especially for one of our guys, one of our Sixers overseas right there. So definitely wishing the best to Korkmaz. But what I will say about Furkan Korkmaz, a guy that has shown so much offensive incline throughout his career, shown so many signs of being a decent rotational player at least, or an offensive, like a spark plug off the bench to get you maybe 10 to 15 points here or there every other night, right? He just can't put it together consistently, man. He starts off the season hot against New Orleans last year, and then you never really hear from him again consistently. And shoots his worst percentage from three last year in the latest year of his career. He shoots the worst as far as what we've seen from the 3 point line, 28.9% from three. We can't put that on the floor. Like, we can't. Not around Embiid, not around Harden, not around Max. We can't put you on the floor if you're shooting 28.9% from three and you're supposed to be a shooter. That can't happen. So, as far as Furkan Korkmaz, I'm sure he'll get an opportunity to fight for some minutes, but I've given up as far as him being a rotational piece. He's a bottom of the bench guy. He's a guy that somebody gets injured and maybe he can get you like 15 points on a random night. But I'm not putting this guy in my rotation consistently. I wouldn't even put him in the category of fighting for minutes. But I'm sure he will get some opportunities. He'll get to prove himself, and if he steps up, then so be it. I wish the best for Ferg. Honestly, he's an awesome dude. He just hasn't been able to put it together. Isaiah Joe, he's in like on paper, Isaiah Joe is like the perfect piece to be like that fourth guard that I was talking about with Shake Milton, rather Isaiah Joe, right? Spot up shooter, doesn't need to have the ball in his hands all the time, can play pretty decent defense. He can stick to his man. And he's lengthy. He's smooth, right? Great offensive stroke, pure shooter. He's got to be ready to go in the short amount of minutes that he gets, and he never is. That's my problem with Isaiah Joe. The grand scheme and the idea of Isaiah Joe is beautiful. It's magnificent. It's perfect. But when you put him out on the floor, he looks nervous. He looks out of place. He doesn't shoot the shots that he should shoot. When he shoots, it's way off. It's almost like he's got nerves going. He should be out there. If he comes in, he should be able to light it up from three. That's his job. So Isaiah Joe, I think, while he could end up fighting for minutes for that fourth guard in the rotation, right? Could be that pure shooter that they can bring off the bench as a spark plug, hit a couple threes in a game. But I got to see it to believe it. I haven't seen it in game yet. We've seen it in G League. We've seen it in Summer League. We've seen it. I saw it at the Rumpf Classic this summer with Tyrese Maxey. Right, I got to go out there and watch those guys play. The guy can play. He can play at an NBA level. He just can't put it together. Once again, you got to put it together in those opportunities. That's where you see more opportunities. You don't, you're not going to get minutes. He's going to be fighting for a roster spot, quite honestly. A roster spot, not just minutes. He may make the roster and fight for minutes, but he's going to be fighting for an initial roster spot. And the rest of the guys here I'm going to be talking about, Charles Bassey, he's going to be fighting for that last roster spot. Him, Isaiah Joe. These guys are the guys that are going to be fighting for that spot. Paul Reed. I mean, I think Paul Reed's a lock to make it, but Charles Bassey, Isaiah Joe, those are going to be your guys fighting at the bottom of the roster for that final roster spot. And it's going to be interesting to see what they pick. I would personally go with Isaiah Joe as of right now. You just never know how injuries are going to play out with those big men, to keep four centers around as well, though, as far as Charles Bassey. Charlie Brown Jr., I don't see him making the team, although he's a nice hustle player. He does a lot of the intangibles, I would say, but just not a guy that you're going to see getting a ton of minutes in the NBA. And Jaden Springer, man, he showed some signs. Doc had some high praise for him defensively coming out of the first day of camp the other day. So Jaden Springer's interesting. I've heard nothing but positives out of Delaware regarding Jaden Springer. It's going to be interesting to see, if he gets elevated this year, if he does some time in the G League, if he gets some minutes in the rotation, if he's that inclined defensively. You never know. You can never have enough good perimeter defenders. So let's get to the additions. This is the fun part. This is the part that I have been so excited for. You talk about the additions. Daniel House, right? You bring in Daniel House. That's part of the Houston Sixers or the Philadelphia Rockets. That's what we're talking about with Daniel House. But nonetheless, a guy that can shoot the three ball, if nothing else, plays a little bit of 3 or 4, can play physical defense, can shoot the three ball. 37.6% from the 3-point line last year, 5.9 points per game. He's going to be fighting for minutes. I look at him similarly to George Niang. Fighting for minutes, situational, rotational player. He's going to get minutes here and there. Montrezl Harrell. Super excited about this late off-season acquisition, addition. Montrezl Harrell, former Sixth Man of the Year, got that award under Doc Rivers in LA for the Clippers. Talking about the best offensive big man that we've ever seen backing up Embiid. Talking about a guy that can come in behind Embiid and get you double digits. Might not get you double digit rebounds like Drummond, like Dwight Howard. May still get you the technicals like Dwight Howard. But not going to get the rebounds right. Not going to be as defensively inclined as a Dwight Howard or even an Andre Drummond as a shot blocker. But nonetheless, 13 points per game last year, 6 rebounds per game, 2 assists. He's Embiid's backup. He doesn't need to do much more than that. That would be perfect as a backup. In fact, that would be a dream as a backup. I'm looking from anywhere from 8 to 12 points from Montrezl Harrell off the bench. Those nights when Embiid's resting, he'll get the start. I love the idea of that. And then you get Paul Reed involved in that rotation. Montrezl Harrell, I can't speak enough on that addition. It was late. Got those drug charges cleared, that misdemeanor, whatever happened there in Kentucky. And he's ready to go, and he looks motivated, man. He's been counted out the last few seasons. He was on the Lakers, got shipped out to the Wizards and to the Hornets, and then had to, wait until the end of the offseason to get a contract. He's been counted out, and I'm looking for a little bit of a redeem year for Montrezl Harrell. He's going to bring the energy. And Sixers fans, along with the rest of these other two guys that I'm about to name, Sixers fans are going to fucking love Montrezl Harrell. Trez. We saw him get in Embiid's face last year when the Wizards and the Sixers played. What do you think he's going to do in Philly going buck wild with these fans, man? We're going to have him through the roof. And he's going to have us through the roof. That's what I love about it. Toughness, gritty. That's why the title of this show, toughest Sixer team I have seen in years. Since the Allen Iverson finals team, this is the toughest team that I have seen in years. And I'm excited. DeAnthony Melton, the next acquisition of the offseason. You traded Danny Green and that 21st pick. I can't even remember what pick it was after they traded it. But you get DeAnthony Melton, 10.8 points per game last year, 4.5 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game, 37.4% from the three-point line. That's huge because this guy is super athletic. Might be the most athletic guy on the team, quite honestly. Guy can jump out of the gym, but on top of that, he can spray it from three-point line, and that's what it's all about when you're talking about a guy that can come in off the bench, combo guard, the best guard that we've had off the bench in years. Excited. I might be more excited for DeAnthony Melton than I am for PJ Tucker, who we're about to talk about next. I might be more excited for DeAnthony Melton. Doc Rivers has mentioned DeAnthony Melton as, aside from PJ in training camp so far, DeAnthony Melton is causing a ruckus at practice. He said it got to the point where he was almost disrupting practice with how disruptive he is defensively. It was almost a distraction for practice because he's so good defensively. And you're talking about bringing this guy in off the bench. He backed up John Morant last year. You're going to get a lot more minutes on this team, buddy. No Dylan Brooks, no John Morant here, right? We got James Harden, we got Tyrese Maxey, but you are that third guard. There's no Tyus Jones here backing up Ja. This is your backup role, DeAnthony. This is your chance to go out there and shine. And I think in a higher volume of a role, I think DeAnthony Melton can be really good. And I think he's sneaky. I think I heard Beard of Knowledge, my buddy Phil from DSM Media, say it. Sneaky Sixth Man of the Year candidate if he can really improve. And if he gets into that conversation, then you may start having the conversation about most improved player. I won't go that far, but sneaky pick for Sixth Man of the Year. I love DeAnthony Melton, that energy, that ability off the bench. Sounds beautiful. Got to see it to believe it. But I am looking forward to DeAnthony Melton, of course. The final acquisition, I know Trevelin Queen, y'all can talk about it. I think he's going to get cut, so I'm not going to spend time on that. But G League MVP from last year, very gritty guy. If he makes the team, I would love to see what he's got, but he didn't look good in Summer League. And really, just with the acquisitions here, the people that we have on the roster so far, I'm not keeping Trevelin Queen over guys like Isaiah Joe. That's dumb. PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker, we've talked about him so much this offseason, guys. We talked about him so much since it was rumored that he was coming to Philly, signed with Philly. Sixers fans down on the signing, down on spending that much money, bringing yourself around to it. I never had that period to go through. As soon as they said PJ Tucker to the Sixers, my energy level jumped to 1,000 because that is the start of what the Sixers were missing last year. And when I say the start, it's because they were missing other things as well, but it starts with that grittiness, that toughness, and the knowledge and understanding of what it takes to win. PJ Tucker is an instant impact to this team. He's already making an impact. You see in the videos the energy he brings. Doc mentioned he is like light years ahead of the team as far as the best defender on the roster. And he's coming off knee surgery. He's 37 years old. And that's what Doc Rivers had to say about PJ Tucker. I am just so excited, man. You talk about a guy that has been in the Eastern Conference Finals the last 2 seasons, won a championship just a season ago with the Milwaukee Bucks, was a catalyst, guarded KD down the stretch for the Bucks. You talk about what he did against the Sixers. He was the 3rd best player on the Heat in the 2nd round. He was strapping James Harden. I don't care if James Harden was a step slower last year or not. He was strapping him. If you can't beat him, acquire him. It ain't join him, acquire him. And that's what Joel Embiid said at the end of the postseason last year. And the Sixers went out and did just that. I don't care about the price tag. I don't care about the age. All I care about is the instant impact, the gritty, the heart, the toughness, the leadership, and the experience that PJ Tucker brings to this roster. I couldn't be more excited for PJ Tucker. Just 7.6 points per game last year, 5.5 rebounds per game, 41.5% from 3. Corner specialist, the best corner 3-point shooter in the league. How many open looks is he going to get with Embiid, Harden, and Maxey and Tobias? He's going to get so many open looks from 3. It's going to be like practice. Blame him for choosing this roster to join, because this is the roster that perfectly fits around him. We don't need you to score over 10 points. Just shoot the open 3. That's it. And my man was shooting floaters for Miami. I mean, if he does that in Philly, it's a wrap. But we need that grittiness. We need that toughness, that defensive aggressiveness. We need all of that. We need that passion. And PJ Tucker's ready to go, guys. So that wraps up the roster review. My expectations for each and every player, right? And as far as PJ's rotate, he's going to be an instant impact player. I'd imagine he's going to be a starter, but his biggest influence is going to come postseason. The main thing for me with PJ Tucker and even Embiid, Harden, keep these guys healthy throughout the season. Don't play them in back. You don't need to play Embiid in back-to-backs most of the time. You can throw – you have 2 centers, Montrezl Harrell, Paul Reed. You can throw those guys out there for nights like that. Keep Embiid as healthy as possible, Harden as healthy as possible, PJ Tucker as healthy as possible throughout this season. And ride your young guns, right? You use them a little bit. This season is going to be so interesting to watch how they play, how they maneuver, how they kind of just grind throughout the season, how serious they take the regular season. Because there's a balance to everything, right? You can't put all of your energy into I got to have that first seed. I got to make sure we get home court advantage. Yes, you want to win as many games as you can. You want to put yourself in the best situation as possible. But the goal here that we need to keep in mind is postseason and preparing for the postseason. What helps them become the best team once they get to the postseason? What can they do in the regular season, not only to win games, not only to get a top seed in the East, but to prepare themselves better for the postseason? I think that's what they need to be thinking about this season. Obviously, you can't fall asleep and fucking miss the playoffs. That's not going to happen. Okay, that's not going to happen. But what I mean by that is don't overlook the regular season. Obviously, you don't want to get out to the Eastern playoffs and be a 6 or a 7 or an 8 seed, right? Don't think that's possible. I'm looking at them as more of a 2 or 3 seed. We'll get into that, but go out there and prepare for the postseason. And I think we need to keep that in mind. I think that's a lot of what the Sixers got entrapped with in the past seasons. Now, last season was what it was. You got Harden midway through the year, a little bit after halfway through the year, actually. And they looked good at first. They had really high moments. They had really low moments in the postseason. And that's going to happen when you just haven't played together that long. It is what it is. You have your main star injured, but Ben Simmons, right? They used to have this stigma with Ben Simmons where Ben Simmons in regular season, Ben Simmons in postseason. Get rid of that, right? We take the ineffective guy out of the postseason, out of that rotation, out of the regular season. So we need to just start building tendencies that will carry on into the postseason. That's what I mean by keeping that focus. Make sure you know what goals are in mind, not these individual accolades. We, not me. That is the most beautiful thing that I heard on Media Day. Just a few keynotes before we get into just strictly expectations for the team here. Keynotes: improve the grit, toughness. I preached this throughout the episode here. PJ, Trez, Melton, they all got that dog mentality. Even down to Daniel House, that guy is gritty. Harden MVP season. He's in one of the best. He's in the best shape of his career according to him. He's lost 100 pounds this off season. Been running hills, getting his conditioning right. His hamstrings feeling better. What version of Harden do we see here? I'm thinking MVP version. Doesn't mean that he has to be in the MVP combo. Just back at that level, able to show us that at times, night to night basis, right? Don't forget about Tobias Harris. Everybody looks at this Sixers roster. You talk about the big three, you talk about Maxey, Harden, and Embiid. Don't forget about Tobias Harris. My man just got married. He's in a peaceful part of life. He can focus on ball. He's got a full off season with Harden, this entire roster. I'm looking for a big season from Toby. I think he can have one of the most efficient seasons of his career. Melton and PJ, by far the best defenders so far in camp, according to Doc. That's been reported. That was from Keith Pompey. That's interesting. What type of identity can they bring to this Sixers team? We already talked about grittiness, toughness, heart, defense, right? Niang, House, Korkmaz, Reed. Who gets the minutes, right? These guys are all competing for minutes. Isaiah Joe, Shake Milton, all of these guys. Who is going to get the minutes? PJ Tucker at center. This is something that has been talked about very briefly throughout the start of training camp, is the idea of using PJ in situations where you take Embiid off the floor and running PJ at the center position. He's guarded guys like Embiid in the past, quite honestly. He's had to do that in his career, and he has the lower body strength to kind of handle that whenever he's dealing with post-up players. Going to be interesting to see how often we see that. I know we will see it at some point just to try it because we know Doc Rivers, but I'm interested to see what that looks like. Where does Paul Reed fit? I know we just said, about him fighting for minutes. Where does he fit? Backup center, backup forward. Where does Paul Reed fit in this? What does he look like? And then Trez, of course, we talked about that. Best scoring big behind Embiid in Embiid's career since we've seen Embiid here. Embiid seems more mature and focused than I've ever seen him. And every year he takes a step in maturity. We've seen it. Cuts the fast food, cuts the jokes, cuts the after game trash talking last year. And this year, nothing to start to see. They're very, very bland Embiid, straight business from what I saw. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate where his mindset is at. It's all about basketball. It's all about winning. It's all about success. What's the starting lineup look like? I'm predicting a Maxey, Harden, Tobias, PJ, and Embiid. That's the starting lineup that I would put out there. That's the one that I'm picturing. There is a world where maybe you bring PJ off the bench from night to night, put Matisse Thybulle in there if you need him to guard a rangy wing, I guess you could call it. But I'm rolling with Maxey, Harden, Tobias, PJ, and Embiid most nights. That's going to be my go-to starting lineup in the playoffs. But of course, you adjust depending on the matchups. So finally, let's just get to the regular season goals for the Sixers. This is going to be the last piece of the episode, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me here, sticking through this so far. I know we were just getting started this season, but so much more content to come, guys. But let's get into the Sixers projections for this season. So I just got a couple of key notes here that I'm going to read off to you, just as far as where I'm at with the Sixers. Top 5 offensive team. Easily, you see who's on the court. I mean, they got floor spacers. They got a guy like Embiid that can lead the league in scoring. They got a guard like Harden that can lead the league in scoring. They got a spark plug like Maxey that can score 30 to 40 points on any given night. They have a guy like Tobias Harris that can score from anywhere on the court. This is going to be a top 5 offensive unit, top 10 defensive unit, and I think Embiid takes a step in that regard this year as well on the defensive end. I think he realizes offensively he has a little bit more help than what he's had in the past, and he can be that defensive anchor, similar to what we see from Rudy Gobert. I think he can be a little more rangy on the defensive end. 50 to 55 wins, that's something that's been common over the last couple of years for the Sixers. They've been getting to that 50-win mark. You want to see that. Just obviously that puts you in the top, 1 to 4, 1 to 5 seeds in the East. That's where you need to be in order to set yourself up for success. I don't think the number 1 seed is imperative, but you need to be in those top 4 seeds, I would imagine. I got them as the second best team in the East. I got them. I know I just mentioned I want them to get a top 4 seed. I have them getting a top 3 seed, anywhere from 1 to 3. I could see the Sixers falling in there. As far as how I have the Eastern Conference laid out, just to give you kind of an overview, Milwaukee number 1 easily. They're my title favorites this year. I think that we've kind of been underrated Giannis as a whole and that unit as a whole over the last couple of seasons, even since they just won the championship the year before last. Milwaukee's my runaway favorite this year, but number 1 in the East, Milwaukee. Number 2, Philly, as I mentioned. Number 3, Boston. I would have Boston over Philly, quite honestly, if they didn't have the Ime Udoka mess. The Brooklyn Nets I have 4th. They're interesting. They could drop. They could rise. It's very interesting. I was listening to the Zach Lowe pod about the Brooklyn Nets today, and I love the way they put it. You know, it could be a very good synergy where Ben Simmons comes out. He's a perfect piece around, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, right? He comes in, he plays defense, he facilitates, rebounds, does all the little things, the intangibles, right? And then Kyrie, he's playing every game, right? He's available. KD's not injured. He's happy. He doesn't want to be traded. There is a world where that happens. They come in, they have perfect chemistry. There's a world where they fall completely apart, just like they did last year. There is a world where that happens. We can't just sweep under the rug the fact that KD requested a trade and that Kyrie was contemplating opting out to take a mid-level exception deal with the Lakers. Like, we cannot ignore those facts. Those are things that did happen this offseason. KD did try to get Sean Marks and Steve Nash fired, and now it's back like a couple that's on the brink of divorce. And I love that analogy from Zach Lowe. I'll give credit where it's due. That is not mine. Number 5, I have the Miami Heat. May have them too low. I want to say that, get out in front of that, because the Miami Heat always seem to surprise me. Even when the roster doesn't look the greatest, they always are full of surprise, and they are always consistent and stable. Let's be honest. Number 6, the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a team that I've seen a lot of people overrating. Donovan Mitchell, right, I get it. He's a good player. Similar situation to what he had in Utah, in my eyes. Undersized backcourt. You can't win with an undersized backcourt. You have 2 guards under 6'3" in Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I don't see it. I think they'll be a good team. I think they'll be talented. They'll have nights. They'll have flashes. I just don't see it defensively. When you get to the postseason, that backcourt unit is going to get abused. That's the 6th seed for me right now. Number 7, Toronto Raptors. Number 8, Atlanta Hawks. Number 9, Chicago Bulls. And number 10, Charlotte Hornets. Those would be my top 10 teams in order as of right now, with Philly being number 2. MVP caliber players on the team, right? We've already talked about that. James Harden, Joel Embiid. I see them at that level this year. Most improved player candidates, right? I talked about Tyrese Maxey. I think he's a real candidate for that. And I think he would be kind of an overwhelming candidate for that at this point in the offseason so far. But how about Anthony Melton for most improved player in a bigger role with the Sixers, a 6-man off the bench type thing? That's an interesting thought. We'll see how it plays out. Doc Rivers. I take a gulp before I say this. Could he be coach of the year? Is this like something possible? Like, if the Sixers get the 1 seed, they maybe have like the first or the second best record in the NBA. Is there a world where Doc Rivers puts this together this year and gets coach of the year? I think there is a world where that could play out, just because this team is so well-rounded, so stacked, so covered, so deep at every position. That bodes well for Doc Rivers, as we know he loves to do those hockey switch units. All-star level players, obviously, Embiid, Harden, I think Maxey could get there this year. I'm not gonna bank on that. I would probably put some money. I am gonna put some money on that, but I wouldn't bank it, right? Maxey, there's a lot of good, talented guards in this league. We saw Darius Garland take the jump to an All Star last year. Does Maxey have that type of jump in him? I just don't know how that plays out when you have Harden in your backcourt with you. Um, Tobias Harris, he's another candidate. I told you I'm looking for big things out of Tobias. I think you can get to that 18, 19 point per game range, get about 5, 6 rebounds, about 3 to 4 assists per game, shoot about 35, 37% from three. Efficiency is the key for Tobias. I think he can get into the All Star conversation. I don't know that I would bank on him making it either, but he will play at that level, I would imagine. Mentioned D'Anthony Melton earlier as the most improved player sleeper, even a six man of the year sleeper. I would mention D'Anthony Melton there. Defensive player of the year, Joel Embiid. Possibility, maybe. Maybe give up on the MVP and go for the defensive player of the year. Maybe that's more obtainable. Just a thought. Maybe this team is better when Embiid is a defensive anchor and focused on defense, where he can still score 25 points a night. That's fine. Maybe it's not 30. Maybe it's just 25 now. Maybe that's the best version of Embiid for the Sixers at this point. We don't know, and he's probably not going to play like that. He's a monster. He can do everything. He's going to do everything. But it is an interesting thought. What does an Embiid that is completely focused on defense look like for this team, and what does that team look like with an Embiid anchor like that? I think he's a sleeper for Defensive Player of the Year. Definitely in my top 5 for Defensive Player of the Year candidates. And then Matisse Thybulle. Can he make enough improvements offensively? Did he make enough improvements offensively this offseason that he can be reliable and be put in enough to get qualified for a Defensive Player of the Year candidate? Because he's that good defensively, statistically. He just needs more minutes, more opportunities in order to kind of emphasize and expand that defensive prowess. As far as goals this year, I've talked about it throughout the show. We, not me. We, not me. We, not me. First goal, keep Harden, Embiid, PJ healthy going into the postseason. That should be the number one goal. Keep them healthy going into the postseason. You have a strong chance of winning the NBA championship. Escape the goddamn second round. Back-to-back season, Hawks, then the Heat, two teams that, quite frankly, Sixers at 100% should not lose to these teams. And they're just not as good as the Sixers. They were just not as good as the Sixers, and the Sixers lost to a team that played harder, played more together. Last goal, win a championship. Bring it to Broad. Bring the parade to Broad Street. Come on, Philly. The Sixers, you got the talent, right? It's just about building the cohesiveness, the chemistry throughout the regular season to be ready for the postseason. That's what I've been preaching this whole episode. Focus on preparing for the postseason. You don't have to focus on the postseason. Just focus on building tendencies to prepare for it. Top 5 most important Sixers. We've kind of hinted at that. It's just something I've written down here. But top 5 most important Sixers for this season. And I'll start at 5. This one might surprise you guys. D'Anthony Melton. I mentioned how I may be a little bit higher on D'Anthony Melton than Montrezl Harrell, even PJ Tucker, as far as the impact that he can make on this team. This is a team that lacked so much athleticism. They lacked shooting. They lacked guard play. They lacked ball handling, facilitating. D'Anthony Melton brings all of that off the bench. He's going to have a much larger role, and I think he could build himself into a crucial piece of this roster. Number 4, it's Tobias Harris. It's Tobias Harris. And I'll throw you guys the caveat, the wrench now. PJ Tucker is probably the 4th most important once you get to the playoffs. In the regular season, PJ Tucker, while I think he will bring leadership, instant impact, he's not a top 5 most important player for the regular season because he's a postseason player. That's what it's about, winning time, right? So just wanted to throw that out there. No shade to PJ Tucker. He's a postseason guy. I'm ready for him to influence the postseason heavily. Number 4 is Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris. He is the 4th most important Sixer throughout the regular season just to keep this ship manned, right? Keep this ship on the right track. Keep it aligned. You're that fourth wheel, right? You can't go flat because you'll bring the rest of the car down. You got to keep it afloat here, Tobias. Fit in your role. Be the most efficient within your role, which can simply be picking your spots, shooting the open three, and playing defense, rebounding. Tobias Harris can be really good this year. He's going to be the fourth most important player on this team. Tyrese Maxey comes in at number 3. We know. The main thing with Tyrese Maxey is not even that he has to have like this monumental jump this year. Yes, I would love to see him get into like the 20-point per game mark, maybe increase his assists a little bit, maybe getting involved on the defensive end, get a little bit better there, and make a more of an impact on the defensive side. But even if Tyrese Maxey came back and played at the level that he did last year, maybe just a little more consistently, that is good enough for me right now. I think he's going to come out and blow my mind again. Let me be clear about that. I think that Tyrese Maxey is going to have a monumental jump from year 2 to year 3, just like he had from year 1 to year 2. But he doesn't need to. It's not a necessity for the Sixers to win a championship. But if he does that, it bodes very well for them. He's the number 3 most important player on this team. Number 2, this one might surprise you. It's going to be Joel Embiid. Number 1 as far as health. He needs to be healthy going into the postseason. But I'm not worried about Embiid if he is healthy. If he is healthy, if he is in the right mindset. I said the might mindset. No, the right mindset. If Embiid is in the right mindset going into the postseason, in the right shape, physically healthy, he's a problem regardless. I have no worries, no concerns about Embiid if he is healthy going into the postseason. That's the number 1 thing, getting him to the postseason healthy. He's the number 2 most important player during the regular season. James Harden is the most important player throughout the regular season and throughout the postseason, because James Harden, I said earlier, we need to eliminate the regular season versus the postseason versions as we did with Ben Simmons. Same thing with James Harden. You can't be balling all regular season and then disappear in the postseason. We need James Harden throughout this season to be playing at that MVP level. I've already elaborated on that. I'm not going to do it again. Need James Harden playing at that MVP level that he has shown that he can play at when he's healthy. And I think he does, man. He's going to be the most important Sixer this season. There's a lot of pressure on James Harden's back, but I think he's got the shoulders to carry it. Yeah, I really do. Last thing I'll touch on here before I get you guys out of here. We're running on an hour. How can I sit here and talk to myself for an hour? My God. No, I'm kidding. It's fun, man. I'm so excited. Like, I can't stress that enough. I'm so excited. I've already got the NFL back, and I'm about to get my favorite sport back. Basketball. The NBA. I cannot wait. Last thing I want to touch on with the Sixers here, concerns. There's always going to be concerns, guys. I've boasted them up. I've put them on this pedestal here. They're the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference. There's concerns. The first one I want to mention, pure shooting. I know you bring in Melton, you bring in PJ Tucker, you bring in Daniel House. You have, Shake Milton, Cork Maz, Isaiah Joe off the bench. You have James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, guys that have improved their shooting. Where's the pure shooting? Where's the guy that can come off the bench and hit 4 threes in one night? I'm going to have to see that to believe that. George Niang, maybe. We'll see. Where's the pure shooters? High volume 3-point shooting. That's a little bit of a concern for me. There is no JJ Redick, right? There is no Seth Curry, for instance. The next concern, athleticism, age. I think that is an obvious one. You talk about athleticism. Embiid, you got to take care of Embiid. You got to take care of Harden, right? You got to hope that they get to the postseason healthy. PJ Tucker's older. He's 37. Harden's up over the 30-year-old age mark. D'Anthony Melton, probably the most athletic guy on the team. Maxey's young. He's an athletic guy. Matisse is an athletic guy. That's about it. That's about where it runs dry as far as athleticism for this team. And that is a little bit of worry. You don't want your guys breaking down towards the end of the season. That's why it's monumental that you keep PJ, keep Harden, keep Embiid healthy throughout the year. The next issue, a legitimate small forward. I mean, I know we talked about all the forwards on the squad, A lot of these guys are more meant to be a 4. PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris. One of them is going to play 3 if both of them start. Neither of them are natural 3s, in my opinion. So that is an interesting concern. A legitimate 3, a legitimate small forward. Can Matisse Thybulle be that guy? Can he take that jump? Kind of like what we've been talking about this whole episode. Once again, Embiid, Harden, PJ Tucker. We talked about that. That's probably my main concern. That's my number one concern. Getting through the regular season healthy. And then finally, I know I just mentioned Doc Rivers as a potential Coach of the Year candidate. He's also a concern. He has to be. We've seen what he's done, how he's crumbled with immense amounts of talent. He had Kawhi and Paul George, for God's sake, in LA. So we've seen him flop on his face with an immense amount of talent on a roster. But I do have some optimism with Doc and the way he's approached everything coming into this season. I do have some optimism with Doc, even after 2 second-round exits with Doc Rivers, where coaching was clearly an issue in some of those instances. It almost feels like he has too much depth, too much talent that he can't screw it up, even if he puts in a hockey lineup. It's interesting. Can Doc Rivers be Coach of the Year candidate, or will Doc Rivers be the detractor that he gets talked about so much to be? Nonetheless, guys, that is all I got for you for this episode. Obviously, this is Scotty Talks NBA. I'm going to do my Sixers content and my NBA content separate this year because I realize I just bombard NBA fans with Sixers talk, Sixers references whenever I include the Sixers in my main show. So we're going to segment it out. I'm going to do Sixers show separate, Scotty Talks NBA separate. Still going to be Scotty Talks NBA. It's just going to be Sixers edition. Then we'll have Scotty Talks NBA league-wide spectrum, right? So we're going to keep it separate like that this year. I'll be going live 2 times a week. Obviously, this show isn't live. I'm getting this out. I got a wedding to go to this weekend. So I wanted to get this out, had to pre-record ahead of time. But as we get into the regular ebbs and flows of things, I will be live 2 times a week. Looking at Saturday mornings and Wednesday mornings. Those are going to be my go times. So Saturdays at 10 a.m. and Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be go time for Scotty Talks NBA. We're going to come back with a new edition. This is just quick off-season recap, preview for the upcoming season. We're going to be coming back strong, obviously. And this season's going to be fun, guys. I'm going to get you guys involved so many ways. You just don't even know what's coming. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this season with you guys, sharing the excitement, sharing the destiny of this Sixers team. And in all honesty, for my just general NBA fans, I can't wait to share the fun of this season because there's just so many things to look forward to. I'll get into it in my next episode, which you'll catch shortly, where I cover the entire NBA. We'll give out the full NBA predictions across the league spectrum. But this is going to be it for this episode, guys. If you're not already following me, you can find me at Scotty Drown on all social media platforms. Follow me. Come on. The content's real. The content's legit. If you like my show, why not? If you're not already subscribed to DSM Media on YouTube, that is the main thing that helps us grow. Go over to YouTube channel, hit subscribe, ring the goddamn bell, turn the notifications on so you're notified every single time we go live. And of course, make sure you're following DSM Media on all social media platforms. That's DSM_media on Twitter, DSM.DoSomethingMajor on Instagram, and DSM Media on TikTok. Guys, make sure you follow us on all platforms and be sure to check out the merch site in the link tree. Tons of merch. We're going to have fresh Sixers gear coming out. Going to get into the NBA spectrum as far as some gear as well. We'll get some really good stuff going there. But nonetheless, exciting times. The NBA is back. NFL is back. Sports are back. I'm not a baseball. I'm not a hockey guy. I'm not a soccer guy. You guys know me if you follow me. I'm basketball. I'm football. We'll be getting into college basketball here soon as well. But guys, please have a great rest of your day wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. Enjoy it. From Scotty to the audience, I love you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And strap in. Buckle up. It's going to be a hell of a ride this season, guys. That is going to be it for this episode of Scotty Talks NBA. Peace.